You all know Ken Paxton. He is the Attorney General in Texas. He is one of the cruelest, most corrupt people in office in the country, which is saying a lot given the people in the country in elected office. But this is a Texas Republican who is so bad at everything he does, just coming from a bad place, I mean, that House Republicans in Texas last year impeached the guy, but then MAGA Senate Republicans are like, no, sorry, we like corruption and cruelty. And that's why Ken Paxton still has a job. Well, what is Ken Paxton doing these days? Well, recently he sued a homeless shelter because, check this out, this is how his own press release put it, because they're operating a taxpayer-funded drug paraphernalia giveaway next to an elementary school. This organization is threatening students' health and safety and unjustly worsening daily life for every single resident of the neighborhood. We will shut this unlawful nuisance behavior down. He's suing a Christian homeless shelter because he says they're a danger to the community and it's a drug giveaway company or something like that. And if he wins in court, this shelter will be shut down. I think what's interesting about this lawsuit is, again, I want to repeat, Ken Paxton, the Christian nationalist MAGA attorney general, he is suing a Christian ministry for helping unhoused people, which is disturbing. And now the ministry is fighting back by saying, in part, well, guess what? We have a religious right to help the people who need our help. We have a religious right to assist others. This is what they said in response to the lawsuit. And this is a group called Sunrise Community Church. This is what they said. This week, Alan Graham of Texas Christian nonprofits Mobile Loaves and Fishes and Community, blah, 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 blah. Okay. What did this group say? Thankfully, the First Amendment, federal law, and state law protect churches that serve people experiencing homelessness across our country, even when governments attempt to restrict their work. That's a fancy way of saying we're going to go to court and tell them we're Christians and we have a right to help people. And if you shut us down, you're violating our religious freedom. That's a very interesting argument for them to make. They actually pointed out, shutting us down right now for what we're doing, our religious beliefs are protected under the First Amendment, the Texas Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and other laws. So very interesting. Now, I will say a couple things you should know. Sunrise Community Church, it is part of the Reformed Church in America. That's a generally liberal denomination among Protestants. But let me get on Paxton's side for a second, because some of the stuff that he describes in his lawsuit is disturbing. And I'll respond to it, but let me show you what Paxton is bringing up in his lawsuit. Here we go. As residents have complained, Sunrise is also a magnet for a homeless community that commits rampant crimes in the area. And Sunrise enables and facilitates this criminality. It permits a syringe distributor to come to its facility on a weekly basis and give needles to the homeless in order to inject drugs. It permits this drug use on and around its surrounding property, and it then permits the homeless to linger in and around the community even if they are in an unstable state. In their own words, Sunrise has converted the area into a steady home base for this degenerate, drug-addled homeless population. Dude, they're called humans, man. What is that dehumanizing language? The result is predictable and devastating. And this is the picture they included. I don't know if this is some accurate picture or what. They say it's used needles found by a business near Sunrise. But okay, that's not great, I will admit. And if that's near an elementary school, that's definitely not great. What the lawsuit argues is that the Austin City Council has given this Christian ministry over $2.5 million to do its work since 2021. And that is why Paxton wants to shut it down. He says it's too dangerous for the community. They're getting taxpayer dollars to do the work they do, because it turns out Christian ministries can actually do secular work and that's what the city is paying them for. Whoops, shutting that off for a second. But basically, what Paxton also says in the lawsuit is that the ministry has enriched itself with public money. I don't get that because there's no evidence of the religious leaders getting wealthy off of this project, or there's no evidence of the institution not using the money inappropriately. And I told you about the syringe thing, that they're giving away needles. I just want to comment on that for a second. Why on earth do you think, let's say you have these people who are unhoused and they're on drugs, why on earth would you want to give them needles so they can use drugs? Well, let me give you an answer to that, because I think that is a thing that trips up a lot of people who just kind of see the headlines or the pictures. And the thing is, if people are struggling with substance abuse, they're not just going to magically cold turkey stop doing drugs. They will find a way to get them, and they're going to use whatever needles they can get their hands on to inject those drugs into their bodies. And that means they're hurting themselves even more. They might be hurting others indirectly, because if you're sharing needles, you might be sharing diseases and spreading diseases. So when you give people sterile, clean needles, which is, by the way, what the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says you should do, it actually reduces the risk of infection for the people using them, and it prevents disease outbreaks. So giving them needles is kind of like giving people condoms. We are not saying you should use them, but if you're gonna do the thing you're gonna do, we want you to be as safe as possible. So there is a net benefit to the needles. Now, the fact that some of these people might be using those needles and then just tossing them on the ground near an elementary school, yeah, that's not great. But the program itself of giving away sterile needles, that is proven and effective, according to the CDC. And it's not encouraging drug use any more than sex education and contraception encourages people to have sex. You know what I mean? It's about harm reduction. That's the goal here. So this is what I took away when I was reading this lawsuit from Ken Paxton. He spends so many pages describing the ways all these people in the community are so disturbed by the people who are being helped by this homeless shelter. But it's not like Ken Paxton and Republicans have a plan B for helping these people out. They want to shut down this ministry, but there's nowhere for those people to go then. They're just going to disperse to another shelter. They're going to go somewhere else and do the same thing they want to do. Ken Paxton's idea is, if I move them away from here and make them go everywhere else, all of a sudden I can act like I solved the problem, even though I just made everything worse. That's the problem with what Ken Paxton is doing. Texas Republicans are not hard at work creating policy plans to increase affordable housing or give those unhoused people access to licensed social workers or potential jobs. Ken Paxton just wants them to go away from this one spot. And if they die, you think he cares? Of course he doesn't. He doesn't care if women who are pregnant die because of complicated births right now. And the ministry, however, does. This is what Sunrise Homeless Navigation Center, that ministry, this is what they said in response to the lawsuit. It is regrettable that the Attorney General Paxton took this route, especially during the week of Thanksgiving, but Sunrise intends to keep offering services to people in our community who need them. We are committed to being a good neighbor. We will continue to work every day to support the elementary school, our neighborhood, and our entire community. And they go on to say, we have a religious right to do the work we do, which is a wonderful thing to say. And I support that they are saying that. And I would just look at the numbers here. As the largest provider of homelessness services in Travis County, Sunrise has helped more than 4,275 people move into safe, supportive housing. Sunrise serves thousands of people each year through its digital call center, outreach efforts, housing programs, and in-person services. Like, if you get rid of this place, there's a lot of people, thousands of people, who may not get the immediate help they need and the long-term help everyone says they should have. But a lot of politicians don't want to work on those long-term solutions. So again, I don't care that this is a Christian ministry. I have not seen evidence that they're using taxpayer funding to proselytize. They are just inspired by their faith to do the work they do. And I don't have a problem if the city is using taxpayer money and giving it to this faith-based ministry to do secular work. I'm fine with that. So if the Republicans running the government want to give the city enough funding to open up new shelters that are larger, maybe away from an elementary school and all of that, that would be one thing. Guess what? They're not doing that. That's not the case. Ken Paxton wants to shut down this shelter and let city officials in Travis County, which is relatively blue, he just wants to let them figure it out from there. I should tell you that in Travis County, 2 other shelters have been proposed, but there's no timeline for when they are going to be up and running. So this lawsuit's only going to make homelessness worse in the community because of Republican intervention. And you know what's going to happen. Ken Paxton's, if he wins, he's going to make the homelessness crisis worse because these people won't have a safe spot to go to. And when they disperse and when they create problems in other parts of the state, Republicans are going to blame Democrats for the problem that Republicans just caused. One other thing about all this. This is not the first time Ken Paxton has gone after a religious ministry for doing things that Jesus would do. Earlier this year, he actually sued Annunciation House, which is a Catholic ministry that helps refugees. But the ministry prevailed for technical reasons in court. That case has been appealed to the state Supreme Court. But the lawsuit itself angered people. The fact that Ken Paxton went after a Catholic ministry for helping refugees, it pissed off conservative Catholics too. Check this out from earlier this year. Catholic Bishop Mark Seitz, who served the Dallas and El Paso diocese for more than 40 years, has condemned Paxton's litigious attempts to close the Annunciation House. This guy, who is the chair of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops Migration Committee, pause right there. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is a very conservative body that sets the rules for all that stuff. Catholic hospitals, you know how they don't provide any services, vasectomies, tubal ligations, abortions. They don't help you even in the case if a woman's life is in danger. All of those rules that Catholic hospitals are under are set by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. This guy is part of that. And he is like, what are you doing going after one of our people? He's been an outspoken critic of fellow Catholic Governor Greg Abbott's alleged racist projects, including multi-billion-dollar efforts to challenge the Biden administration. So if you're pissing off conservative Catholics, what are you doing? And if Paxton wins in court, he's effectively telling church leaders they have no right to carry out faith-based actions meant to help people. So it might be a short-term victory that has long-term consequences if enough religious people get mad about it. One of the other things I wanted to show you is in this lawsuit, look at how despicable Ken Paxton gets. Because one of the things Sunrise does is the people who work there form a relationship with the unhoused people who come to them for help. They might be committing crimes, petty crimes, but they might be committing crimes, they might be doing drugs, but they come to the people at Sunrise for help and shelter, and the people who work there know who they are. And that means maybe there was a small crime in the area, a robbery of some sort. Well, Sunrise is like, you know what? I think I know who did that. I know where you could find him. I know what he needs. And sometimes Sunrise goes to the police because they're like, we have information we think you might want. And look at how this plays out. This is interesting. Look at number 85. This is in Ken Paxton's lawsuit. Another incident in 2024 involved a Sunrise client in possession of prescription drugs who was yelling at and threatening to fight other subjects on scene at Sunrise. So this guy was being belligerent in public. Another incident involved the client kicking, swinging, and threatening the other patrons. Yes, that's bad. I agree. Although Sunrise appears to call the police when one of its homeless clients physically threatens them, it nevertheless continues to help those same people if they come back. Let's just pause there and think about how depraved that comment is. There are people who do belligerent, maybe dangerous, but criminal things, and they should be punished for it. No one's saying they shouldn't be punished for it. And this Ken Paxton's lawsuit saying these Christians over here, they are helping those people even after they were annoying. What the hell? What do you want them to do instead? Do you want them to kick them out? Like, what's the alternative there? For example, one police report describes someone working at Sunrise telling an officer that a particular client has a history of burglaries. Sunrise has been providing services to this client for 10 years. Yeah, that's right. Indeed, this guy is so familiar with this particular client that he knows exactly where he goes after he commits burglaries. He told police that the client doesn't go very far and actually found the client for the police at the scene for a call. It sounds like Ken Paxton should be thanking that guy, but no, he's saying, wow, isn't it weird how they get close to the people they help, even when those people are doing the crimes? Why would we want to help them? Because in Ken Paxton's mind, if you break a nail, you deserve the death penalty. And so this idea that anyone might be compassionate to people who have issues, it's completely foreign to him. And that's how messed up this whole lawsuit is, right? Sunrise is treating these people the way, Christ would treat them. And Ken Paxton's like, I don't know why you help these people. They did something wrong one time, or more than whatever. It's just a running theme for the ministry because they point out, they know what the problems are with homelessness in the area. This is Sunrise's website. Look at this. Austin's homelessness issues are in some ways caused by what they're caused by in many cities: gentrification, systemic racism, lack of access to medical and mental health care, breakdown of the family, substance abuse, lack of affordable housing. This goes on for a while, right? We know what the problems are. And that's why they want to help. Look at the last line. The political reality of living in a very left-leaning city, in a very right-leaning state, means political solutions are often problematic. That's like on their website. That's not even in response to this lawsuit. Like, they know Republicans aren't going to help them, so they're trying to do it on their own, motivated by their Christian faith. And when the guy who's running Sunrise spoke to the media, he talked about our mission is taking care of the poor. He said these laws have been tested in court on multiple occasions, always with the same result. Churches are protected to do the work that is an expression of their religious practice. So yeah, by forging a relationship with these unhoused individuals, as hard as that may be, instead of just leaving them to their own devices, the problems are not going to go away, but the problems might go down. I was trying to think of an analogy here, and the closest I could come up with is there are teachers in public schools who specifically work with kids who have behavioral disorders. And do you think that is an easy thing to do? It's not. I was not one of those teachers, but I did have kids in my class at a time back in the day with behavioral issues, and it's hard. And sometimes when those problems are so intense, you want to separate them from the other students. And there are teachers who work with those kids. And what happens in those classrooms? You form a bond with those kids. Maybe they start looking up to you. Maybe they get some respect for you. And then maybe you can help modify their behavior over time. If this was Ken Paxton running the school districts or running those classrooms, those kids would just get expelled immediately. And all the issues would still be there, but they would be a lot harder to manage because now no one's looking after them. Paxton and his conservative Republican colleagues are more interested in sowing chaos than fixing problems. And they're willing to go after other Christians to accomplish that. In case you're wondering, Paxton is a Southern Baptist. He attends a place called Prestonwood Baptist Church in Plano. And the pastor of that church, Jack Graham, is a MAGA cultist who has worked with Trump during his first term. So Paxton, horrible dude, still, for many different reasons. Always a new reason. Okay, I will pause there. I got one more story for you after this, but I will take questions. What do you think Jesus would say to Paxton over this behavior? Thank you for that donation, by the way. Jesus wouldn't say anything because, he's not a thing. I'll tell you what Satan would say to Ken Paxton, which is, hi, your room is over here. But this is the thing, like, listen, you can be an atheist, and yet the best case interpretation of the Bible, you're saying, hey, why can't you guys be more like Jesus? And here's a Christian ministry in Texas doing exactly that. And it's not easy. And they don't have a ton of funding, but the funding they do, they're putting back into the work they do. And what happens? The MAGA cultists, the Ken Paxtons in Texas, are like, you know what we should do with those people? Instead of thanking them and praising them and holding them up as an example of how awesome Christians are, let's go after them and make their lives harder. Like, I don't know. I wish Christians in Texas would be as mad about this as I am, but those are the same damn fools who vote these people into office all the time. So I don't know. Oh, harm reduction programs are incredibly effective, and I'm not surprised Paxton's trying to shut one down. They are. And that's the thing. Like, I don't think it's a bad analogy to compare it to handing out condoms, handing out contraception, because conservative Christians say you are encouraging sinful behavior, whereas smarter people are like, no, we're not encouraging anything. But if and when you decide to do something that we know a lot of people are doing, use this. It'll protect you, it'll protect your partner. It's a good thing to have on hand. If you're not willing to admit that, then you don't want to live in reality. But thank goodness there are some people willing to look at the data and say, you know what, this is not an easy political thing for us to do, but it's the right thing to do. So this church is outclassing Ken Paxton. Shocking in a way, but it is Ken Paxton, so it doesn't take much to outclass him. That's what I was going to say too. Like, yeah, buddy, it doesn't take much to outclass Ken Paxton. A lot of people can do it. But honestly, kudos to this church. I admire so much of what they're doing here. It's a good thing. I do actually appreciate when churches actually do good. Listen, it doesn't happen often. So when it does, we can give them props for it. It's okay. You're not a bad atheist. All right. For once, a homeless shelter wants to do what Jesus would do, and they're getting punished for it. Yeah. I mean, they don't have to be in Texas. They could do the work anywhere. The fact that they're doing it, even in Travis County, which is blue, but the fact that they're doing it in Texas says a lot about how dedicated they are to this, because it cannot be easy to try to do this work in Texas. I often work with other organizations that are faith-based but operate in a secular nature to come up with treatment plans for individuals who suffer from chronic mental illness. Well, thank you so much for doing that work. And again, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as the work they're doing is secular, even if, especially if they're funded by tax dollars to do the work they're doing. Like, there's nothing wrong with that kind of partnership. I don't care what your motivations are. I care what you do with it.